Hello and welcome to the first episode of an as of yet currently untitled section of this channel because my creativity does not lend itself to naming things terribly well. So I guess we'll just call it Crossout for now. So welcome to the first episode of Crossout, which is a Night's Watch by Shadowversity inspired review / news kind of thing that I'm going to do, maybe some stories eventually. But yeah, welcome to the first episode of this thing, where we're going to be talking about the first 2 episodes that premiered on Friday of the Kenobi TV show by Disney on Disney Plus. Hopefully this will be the first of many. And yeah, don't forget to leave a like, maybe subscribe, hit that bell notification, although probably don't bother because videos will more than likely be sporadic and not very regular. So anyways, without further ado, let's get into the meat of this video. I want to first preface this video by saying that I was actually quite excited for the Kenobi show. Obi Wan Kenobi is definitely one of, if not my favourite character from any Star Wars media, really. But my anticipation and excitement for the show definitely waned throughout the leaks and the trailers, such as the whole leak of Obi Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader having a duel. Outside of that being done in a dream sequence or a vision, I'm not excited for that. Yeah, and since ever since the main trailer dropped, I was like, yeah, this is definitely going to be a bait and switch. But before I probably go into the notes that I have taken from my watching of the first 2 episodes that aired yesterday, or Friday depending on when this video releases, episode 1 was actually pretty good, aside from a few minor details here and there that I don't even know why they added them, or they probably could have done a little bit better. So overall, I'd give episode 1 of the Kenobi show 8 or 9 out of 10. Pretty high, but I do think that despite all the issues it had, it was actually quite good and almost made me forget about what I could pretty much piece together that the show was going to be about. And all of that came to a head in episode 2. Now, I pretty much had already assumed that this show was going to fall off the rails fairly quickly, but I did not anticipate at all that this show would drop the ball so hard in episode 2. Especially not after the pretty decent show that was given in episode 1. Episode 2 just showed that the quality of the show just literally fell off a cliff over the course of the closing credits. Like, it went really bad. Also want to say that I actually did go into this wanting to like Reva, because I do think that if they had have done her character properly, which they definitely have not, that she could have become a really interesting character. Because I just have to say that I've played the Jedi Fallen Order game, and I love the female Inquisitor, who is like the main antagonist of that game. I think her character is actually quite well done, and she blends in quite seamlessly into the whole story of things, because she actually, she acts like a Star Wars character. Now, I don't really want to throw any hate towards the actress who plays Reva, but it could even just be that she's probably not up to the same standard as other actors in the show, but the way she delivers her lines and plays her character, it doesn't seem super Star Warsy, if that makes sense. I'm sure that's probably going to ruffle a few feathers, but I just don't... it doesn't sound Star Warsy, it doesn't like blend or mesh. It was quite jarring whenever she'd, kind of interact with other characters and stuff like that. But no, I actually went in kind of going, okay, if they do Reva right, I could probably get into her character a little bit. Oh boy, they definitely did not get her right, but we'll get more into that as we go through the notes. Speaking of which, let's actually get into them right now. So starting off, first 4 minutes after the kind of whole Star Wars intro thing that they have, that Disney has on all the Star Wars stuff now. The first 4 minutes, or just over 4 minutes, probably about 4.5, 5 minutes of the episode, literally plays out like one of those YouTube supercut like tribute videos of a character. That's literally what it plays out as. I've seen a bunch of people posting stuff on Instagram of said type videos, and they are almost the exact same as what we're shown in episode 1. Which isn't bad in itself, but I feel like it's a little lazy and definitely is trying to pad out the 56, nearly an hour-minute runtime of the first episode. But all in all, that was unfortunately one of the best or better parts of the entire thing. Then we go straight from that into another Order 66 sequence, which I know that some people don't really enjoy that. They don't like all the Order 66 stuff showing up in all the shows. I actually quite enjoy it, and I think that what they showed in Kenobi episode 1 is the best. I mean, the best representation of it that we've gotten out of any of the shows that it's appeared in, outside of obviously Clone Wars final season and The Bad Batch. They did that quite well as well. The only thing that I will say about that one is it has really big like YouTube fan film energy, which wouldn't be a bad thing in of itself if it wasn't for the fact that those are made with little to no budget, and this Kenobi show has a fairly substantial budget behind it. And also, not to mention that it is like literally the best part of like the entire 2 episodes we've gotten so far, and probably the entire show overall. Straight out from that, we go on to Tatooine, desert planet. We see the Grand Inquisitor's ship kind of come down, or the Inquisitor ship come down into like the middle of a street. Clearly people on Tatooine, clearly people in the galaxy know who the Inquisitors are. As soon as they see the ship, they all kind of huddle to like the edges of the street, and they're clearly worried and anxious of these Jedi hunters. And so they all pop off the ship. And one thing that I will say immediately stood out to me was the Grand Inquisitor, who I did have an issue with the casting. I do agree with fans that the guy who voiced him in Rebels probably should have been casted to play him in live action, especially since he had already expressed interest in bringing him to life in live action. But I will say one thing, that he did actually look a lot better in episode 1. Still nowhere near perfect, but he did look, the makeup, and I think they even put a little bit of VFX on him as well, kind of brought the look together a little bit more for me. The way that he sounds, I haven't exactly watched, I haven't completed Rebels, I've really only seen bits and bobs here and there. But from what I know of the Grand Inquisitor, the guy sounds pretty close. As close as I really think we can ask for Kenobi, considering the dumpster fire that it will eventually become. And the way that he speaks as well, that the mannerisms that he, like portrays are actually quite good, pretty decently in line with the whole character from Rebels. But it's funny, after the interaction they have in this little like saloon thing, which they do some pretty Sith stuff. I think it's Reva who throws a knife at some random lady, and the Jedi Nari, I think his name was, who people were like, oh, who's that going to be, uses the Force to stop it from hitting this person in the cantina. And that's when they go, oh, there's the Jedi, and like a chase ensues. Reva kind of goes a bit psycho, I guess. Not too bad, comparatively speaking to everything else that goes on in the show. But the Grand Inquisitor does step in and he goes, you need to like stop, you need to calm down and like act like an Inquisitor, pretty much. But it's pretty interesting that he doesn't actually seem to know that Kenobi is on Tatooine. They're there for Nari, and they've heard of other Jedi maybe perhaps in exile or in hiding on Tatooine and these like outer planets. Which is one good thing that Disney had going for them in the first episode. The Inquisitors weren't there because it's like, oh, Kenobi's here. That's one thing that they had going for them. Then we skip to this big alien carcass thing in the middle of the desert in Tatooine, where Obi Wan, we see our first glimpse of Obi Wan, so we're like I don't know, like a third of the way or something through the episode, and we only just see Obi-Wan. Not too bad, I don't think, because they gave us time to, you know, immerse ourselves and give us the setting of where we're at. He's a butcher, so he's employed as this butcher of this massive carcass, which is pretty interesting. I guess work in Tatooine would be kind of scarce, at least honest work would be kind of scarce. One thing that I noted was a bit strange, or at first I noticed it was a bit strange because he was stealing pieces of meat. Turns out he's feeding it to his, like, space camel thing, which I was like, okay, I guess, not too bad. Kenobi does live in a cave, which makes sense, like he's in hiding, he's exiled himself, but he's got himself pretty well set up in that cave. A little sensor system and everything. We see that he is, in this episode 1, that he is also like tormented and tortured by like visions of the past, of his failures to Anakin, and just all the stuff that went down in Revenge of the Sith and stuff that happened prior. Which is when he actually calls out to Qui-Gon Jinn, because Yoda says, you know, go into exile, I'll teach you how to contact your old master, he's become one with the Force. Which would have been a really good chance to see Qui-Gon Jinn, but as we all pretty much know, Liam Neeson has not been cast in, so it's pretty safe to say that we're not going to see Qui-Gon Jinn at all, outside of flashbacks. We've seen him in flashbacks, but that's all old footage from The Phantom Menace. So we will not see Qui-Gon Jinn, and he obviously doesn't show up when Obi-Wan calls out to him, which was a bit funky. Then we see Obi-Wan's little Jawa friend. He buys that little toy that we see Luke playing with in the original trilogy when he brings C-3PO and R2-D2 into his house. And he's pretty much Jedi Santa. But I think that's actually really cool that we see that's how he got it there. Obi-Wan has really been kind of in the background of Luke's life, even when he hasn't noticed it. And then, so he does that at night, so no one sees him, so he's literally Santa. And then on his way back through the desert, we get like these like really frantic like first-person shots looking at Obi-Wan from like behind rocks and stuff. And I remember thinking, oh, is he gonna get like taken down by like Tusken Raiders or something? Are we gonna have a sick like lightsaber fight between Obi-Wan and some Tusken Raiders? No, because it turns out he buried his lightsaber in the middle of the desert in a box. But also this is where we meet that Nari character. So he clearly got away from the Inquisitors, and he's like, yo, Kenobi, I've been looking at you, yada 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 yada. Obi-Wan basically says, the best thing he's like, no, I'm not him. Eventually concedes and says, yeah, sure, whatever, I'm Obi-Wan Kenobi. But the best thing you can do is walk out into the middle of the desert, bury your lightsaber, the war's over, we've lost. That whole spiel we get in the trailers, that's pretty much when he says it, is to this Nari Jedi character. Then we skip to, its name now escapes me. We basically skip to Leia's home world where Bail Organa and all that stuff are. Alderaan, that's it. We skip to Alderaan. Jeez, I can't believe I actually forgot that name. And we see what looks to be little Leia being dressed for some sort of event. Which turns out to not be Leia and must be one of her friends. We actually get to see Mrs. Organa. I actually quite enjoyed her character at least in the first episode. But yeah, then we cut to Leia running through the forests of Alderaan, climbing up a tree and watching as all these ships pass out into space. Got a little droid with her, and she's very much like a little explorer. Whereas previously we see that Luke dreams of pod racing. We see him putting on some goggles and pretending he's on like in a pod race on the archway of Owen and Peru's house. Yeah, so it's really interesting to see that Leia has always kind of had that adventurous spirit that we do see come out in the original trilogy, but it is a drop in the bucket. And then she kind of her mum comes to her and she's like, what are you doing out here? Let's go. We've got important stuff. Why are you doing this on this day? And then we get introduced to this weirdo, stranger, Woody Harrelson looking dude who doesn't really look like he belongs in the Star Wars universe. His outfit's kind of weird, but he's clearly stalking little Leia. Cut back to Tatooine and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Turns out Owen's an absolute asshole. Throws this little toy in the bag at Obi-Wan Kenobi's feet, seemingly like breaking it, like it seems to fall apart a little bit, which I think is also, you know, hey, kind of if that is the prop from the original trilogy, that's a bit crappy. Like, show some respect, but you know. And then the Inquisitors. We get Reva and one of the other Inquisitors, who in Rebels is like this big green, like hulking alien dude, who's played by this Asian guy in Kenobi, who I don't think does a terribly bad job. Again, I haven't seen Rebels, but his character is actually quite interesting. I quite enjoy his character whenever he's on screen. But yeah, they pretty much go, yo, we are looking for this guy, so they're looking for Nari. So they're all like interrogating the crowd and stuff. Obi-Wan hides around behind a corner in the stable where his weird space camel is stowed. The Asian dude kind of goes out saying, look, we need information, we're looking for a Jedi, do any of you know anything about it? And then Reva pretty much flies off the handle. Absolutely flies off the handle. She's like, you don't give us information, you try to fight back, we're going to punish you, starting with your hands, we're going to cut them off. And the Asian guy's like, yo, stop it out, you know, cut it out, what are you doing? And Reva legit goes, she's like, what are you trying to accomplish, you know, what are you trying to get? And she's basically like, what I'm owed. And I was like, oh, great. So yeah, my cautious optimism for Reva's character was definitely slashed at that point in time. But she literally turns it into like a Kenobi thing. Like, where's Kenobi? I know you've seen him. If you've seen any Jedi, comes up to Owen, has some weird banter with him, and then threatens to kill him and his family. Literally puts a lightsaber basically right next to his neck. Owen refuses to budge, and basically Asian guy slams the bounty thing on this like stall, and he's like, you have any information, contact us. And I am hands down gonna say Reva should have died in the first episode from everything she's doing. Vader wouldn't tolerate it. Heck, I might know much about the Grand Inquisitor, but I don't even think he would tolerate it. Like, he should have killed her. She should be dead. But that's a funny thing we're going to get to talk about the ending of episode 2, so stay tuned for that one. But no, he basically, when they're walking away, he like slams her against a wall in this alleyway and pretty much tells her to pull her head in and to stop this. And she's just literally being like a cow. She's being an asshole. Like, Reva is being an asshole. She's like she's just so overdone with that type of thing. But there's a lot of jumps between different character settings in this first episode, which was something that I was kind of like, it's a bit funky. But anyways, he cut back to Alderaan, and Leia's cousin and stuff have come over for this big, like, I don't know, politics party. So we're getting a return to the old prequel politics to some extent, slavery included. Leia's cousin is kind of a dick. He's very much up himself, and Leia is an absolute savage. Even at the ripe old age of 10, she is still savage and witty, like she was in the original trilogy, as she was portrayed back then. Yeah, and she basically ends up having a chat like with her parents. Bail kind of goes, you need to go apologize. You know, they have like a really sweet heart-to-heart, but Leia decides not to, and she basically escapes back into the forest outside the palace, and our pirate friend shows up again. And his other friends come out of the shadows, and oh my gosh, they are literally the worst kidnapping pirates in history. They suck absolute nuts at their job. Literally, a small tiny twig, not even knee height to them, stops them from chasing her. At one point, she's literally within arm's reach, and they can't catch her. Somehow, this tiny 10-year-old is able to outrun full-grown aliens and full-grown humans. What the hell? They are literally the most incompetent and like literally retarded pirates in Star Wars history. They have to be. But yeah, eventually they do capture her and kidnap her. Bail and his wife are like, oh my gosh, we have to save her and stuff like that. So they reach out to Obi Wan Kenobi. A thank you to the Star Wars girl for bringing this up. I didn't realize until watching her video on her breakdown of the first 2 episodes. At this point, they would know who Ahsoka was. She's known as Fulcrum to them. She is a rebel, like secret agent, like super spy kind of deal. They pretty much should have contacted her. Not to mention they've got a whole army at their disposal, but they end up deciding to call Obi Wan Kenobi, which then leads to him leaving the planet, which I guess is like the best reason to get him to leave the planet. Still a tiny bit lazy now with that information in mind. But yeah, they reach out to him. Obi Wan pretty much says, I'm not who I used to be. It's been 10 years. You need to find someone else. And he basically, says, no, I can't do it. Bail pretty much says, you need to move on from the past, Obi-Wan, we've all made mistakes, yada yada yada. And that, combined with Nari's cold dead corpse being hung from one of the archways in the main street, pretty much leads Obi-Wan to go out on a night ride into the middle of the Tatooine desert to dig up his lightsaber. At least he had the good sense to put it in a box so it wouldn't get destroyed, but who else's lightsaber would be in that box alongside his? None other than Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber, who I can only assume he put back in the box and buried back in the sand, because we only really see him with his own lightsaber after that. And it turns out, just before the episode ends, the pirates were sent by Reva. Which means that this random Inquisitor has to know who Leia is, not only on the surface level, being Bail Organa's daughter, but also who she truly is, being the daughter of Anakin Skywalker, who was hidden with the help of Obi Wan Kenobi, which is the only reason that she would go, kidnap this random senator's princess daughter. That'll drive Obi Wan Kenobi out of hiding. This is where the show starts to fall off a cliff. And for some reason, it all seems to revolve around Reva. She is literally the crux of this entire show's failing, and it's quite sad, because as I said, her character could have been really interesting, but they can't. They just can't do it. Anyways, that's where episode 1 ends off. Then we go straight into episode 2. Obi-Wan got on a freighter to the place where Leia got kidnapped to at the end of episode 1. So now he's there at episode 2. He's walking through the streets. He's like, yo, I was tracking this ship. Can you help me find it? And this guy at the port's like, nah, bro, all like tracking and stuff is like shut off here. People like to keep their privacy, like to keep it that way, yada yada yada. And we actually see a 501st clone trooper basically being he's basically a homeless beggar sitting on the side of the street, helmet in hand. Can you spare a few credits for a veteran? And he looks like shit. Like, he's got beard and hair, kind of like that clone trooper in the comics who was so far out of range from Order 66 that he never knew what happened, and he'd been on that planet thinking the war was still going for how many years from the end of the war up until Luke Skywalker being like this sick Jedi dude. Like, he looks like that guy. Which was actually really cool to see that. And Obi-Wan, gives him some credits and kind of looks at him like, he doesn't seem to recognize me. Which I think is really weird because everyone else seems to be able to recognize him. But then again, I guess it is one clone out of, like, a lot. So, I guess. Kumail Nanjiani literally plays a scammer. Like, he's a scam artist in the show. His character is like faking to be a Jedi to scam people out of their credits, but he's also like actually helping them as well. Like, he literally says, I helped them get on their way safely, just a little bit poorer. Obi-Wan threatens him, pulls out a blaster, which just shows how like the state Obi-Wan Kenobi is in at this point, where he's using blasters instead of his lightsaber, despite him having his lightsaber on him at this point. And it turns out Obi-Wan Kenobi is still a badass. Even in this broken and like quite defeated state, he's still pretty badass. He's also got some really sick hand-to-hand combat moves, Obi-Wan does. He sneaks into the place where Leia's being held, because Kumail's character goes, alright, I'll help you, she's here, but you gotta get it on your own. So he eventually gets in. Pretty good skills for a dude who wields his sword around all the time. And he doesn't really use the Force, because I guess he like cut himself off, which seems to be a pretty consistent thing with Jedi who are in hiding. They seem to cut themselves from the Force. We saw that with Seer in Jedi Fallen Order as well. But as it turns out, Reva is smarter than everyone else for some reason. Like, this whole episode is basically, oh, Reva, you're so good, you're so much smarter than everyone else. And it's just, it's actually annoying how her character just does nothing but congests the plot. It's so annoying. But then the Grand Inquisitor comes up and he's like, what the actual frick are you doing? I thought I told you back on Tatooine in episode 1 to cut this out. And she talks back to him. I mean, sure, he kind of shouts her down a little bit, but at that point, her head should have been rolling on the floor. He should have cut her head off at that point. There is no way in hell she should still be alive at this point. No way in hell. But then again, that being said, the guy who plays the Grand Inquisitor, everyone knows, openly admitted to not watching or reading any of the media that contains the Grand Inquisitor, despite also saying that he wanted to give an honourable representation to the character. Well, this is where it comes out. The Grand Inquisitor is quite up himself. Like, he's up himself. I actually had to watch a few scenes of the Grand Inquisitor to kind of go, is that what his character was always like? Kind of, yes, but not to the extent that he's portrayed in the show. Which is not surprising, considering the guy literally went out of his way not to learn about the Grand Inquisitor. Whew. Yeah, so, not gonna lie, Kumail's character, Ryu, I think that was his name, actually kind of grew on me. He actually ended up being pretty selfless near the end of the episode. But yeah, Leia and Obi-Wan escape while all this is going on. And they have some pretty cute banter between the two of them. In terms of like who Obi Wan Kenobi is, who Leia is. It's actually quite cute. But yeah, we go straight back to Reva after that adorable little scene. And she really should be dead at this point, because the Grand Inquisitor finds out afterwards and like does nothing. Basically nothing. Until at the end of the episode. At the end of the episode 2, oh, excuse my French, but it is literally the biggest pile of fucking shit ever created. But we'll get onto that. She literally tells the shitty pirates that she got to kidnap Leia to basically send out the bounty to everyone on this planet. So everyone gets this. Everyone gets the bounty. I will say it again, Reva should be dead. She literally should be dead. Either by the Grand Inquisitor's hands, or by Vader's hands, by someone's hands, she should be dead. At this point. Heck, even before this point, but definitely at this point. She's literally just been talked to by the Grand Inquisitor, and she still does her own thing and breaks the chain of command. It's ridiculous. And then we get to see... I don't know what Disney's doing with their budget for these shows, but Reva is running along the rooftops and stuff, using the Force, obviously, because that's what Sith and Jedi do. They use the Force when they're getting around, they use their Jedi parkour. But for some reason, when Reva's doing it, it's so stiff and unnatural. It's just like super lame and janky, like Force parkour. It does not look good, it's not appealing, it's not satisfying, it's nowhere near the level of the prequels or the Clone Wars. Heck, even the original trilogy with Luke Skywalker had better freaking Jedi parkour than this show. And that's the original trilogy. It's not exactly hailed for its, like, outstanding quality of visual effects. Especially not after George went in and added all that CGI, but, you know, that's neither here nor there. Basically, Obi Wan Kenobi gets cornered by a bunch of these bounty hunters on the rooftops. He's trying to chase Leia because Leia's like, in a misunderstanding, she's like, oh my gosh, you're like a bad guy or something. You're not even, bet my father didn't even send you. She's like running away from him. And he's like, no, don't jump, Leia, don't jump, as he's trying to like not get shot by 3 different bounty hunters, including Ryu. Leia jumps, and she just like fumbles it. Hardcore. Obi-Wan rushes to the edge, he's like dangling over it, and he's like, Leia, hold on, don't let go, hold on tight. And she's clearly slipping because of these stupid gloves that she's wearing. And she falls, and she's like falling. And Obi-Wan's like, oh my gosh, I have to save this kid. And he reaches out, and he just taps into the Force that he hasn't done in like 10 years. And he saves her, and lowers her to the ground. Which is actually a pretty interesting scene, because it kind of like mends that somewhat unsteady relationship that the two ended up having at that episode. One thing I do have to say though is like, Leia knew Obi-Wan... I guess she did kind of know Obi Wan Kenobi in the original trilogy, but from how this show is showing them interacting, And especially, yeah, that she should be knowing more than just saying, you know, in the original trilogy, you fought with my father in the Clone Wars. It's like, he saved you on a planet when you were kidnapped. But, you know, it's Disney, so we shouldn't be surprised. I did say that this episode went off a cliff really quick. So, oh, it's not Ryu, is it? No, it's, is it Haja who's... It might be Haja. No, Ryu... Yeah, sorry, Ryu's the planet. So they're on Ryu. Ryu's this crime planet. Haja is the guy's character. They basically almost get cornered by a droid. Haja kills the droid, and he's like, yo, look, they've shut down the ports, take this, go to this... He points to, like, this automated, like, cargo transport platform. He's like, that's fully automated, they won't even think to look for you there. And everyone's like, why are you helping me? Why should I trust you? And he's like, you know, look, do I like credits? Yes, but I mean, do I feel bad about scamming people? Sometimes. But he's like, from what I've seen from you, you are someone who deserves help. And he's like, as for why you should trust, like, as for if you should trust me or not, he's like, do you really have a choice? He's like, now go, I'll hold them off. And so they run off. Obi Wan and Leia run off in the direction of this cargo transport thing. Reva runs around the corner into this alleyway. Haja's like, got his hood on. He takes it off. And he's like, I am who you're looking for. I am Haja, yada yada yada, Jedi. And she's like, you know, Obi Wan. And she's like, basically like beats him pretty much, like kind of pushes him up against the wall. And she's like, you're not a Jedi. And she like uses like, she does the weird interrogation thing that Kylo Ren does in the sequel trilogy, where she like gets into his brain and like picks the information out, and that's pretty much how she knows, oh, they're going to the platform thing. It just seems like actually really lazy. Obi-Wan and Leia have more banter when they get to this place. He's like, you know, you're reckless, you're kind of brash, but like you're also like pretty witty. And he's like, you remind me of someone I used to know. And I don't remember quite what Leia says, but she says something, and everyone's like, she died. She was very close to me and she died a long time ago. I am willing to bet my bottom dollar that he is referring to Duchess Satine with that little thingo. But it is still, like, it's now become such a blatant and obvious jangling of the keys in front of the fans. Like, it's one of the only good parts of this entire episode. And it doesn't do anything to save the episode at all, because we don't even know if he's actually talking about Satine. He could be talking about someone else. I don't know. Then Reva's in there and he's like, yo, Leia, take this thing, activate the cargo transport. If I'm not there in like this amount of time, you need to just go. You just need to go. So Leia goes off and does the thing. Obi-Wan's like hiding around like all the barrels and stuff. And when Reva's getting close, she pretty much references like, he's been looking for you, I'll bring him to Vader myself. And everyone's eyes like widen, like, so clearly he didn't know that that Anakin was still alive. So he had literally thought that he had literally left his brother for dead on Mustafar, which really shows how he's so fricked up in like right now, because he's like, I killed my brother, I killed like my best friend. But she senses this and she's like, wait, you didn't know he was alive, did you? And she literally says, Anakin Skywalker is alive. What the frick? I had to consult with one of my friends who's a bigger knowledge on the kind of like rebels and stuff on this kind of thing. No one outside of obviously the Emperor and a handful of other people have seen Darth Vader's face and lived, let alone know that he's Anakin Skywalker. And yet this random ass Inquisitor knows that he's Anakin Skywalker. It literally makes no sense. No sense at all. Like, it is ridiculous. Not even the Grand Inquisitor knows that Darth Vader is Anakin Skywalker. And he's her boss. And then, anyways, as it looks like we're going to get an epic fight scene between Obi-Wan and Reva, which, I mean, we all know she would have, like, beat the crap out of him. So, I mean, I guess it's better that we got what we got and didn't get that. But basically, the Grand Inquisitor comes in and he's like, I can't trust... She's like, I'm so close to catching him. Get out of my way. And he's like, it is exactly why you're so close to catching him, but I am getting you off this. I can't risk you losing him again. And just as he's about to step forward, Reva kills the Grand Inquisitor. She literally shanks him in the stomach with her lightsaber. Now, I didn't complete watching Rebels, so I had to actually ask my friend about this, and he said that he's pretty sure the Grand Inquisitor dies by Kanan Jarrus. But either way, the Grand Inquisitor dies by falling into an explosion. He doesn't die by getting killed by some rando new character who is literally a Mary Sue who knows freaking everything. This show is like... First episode was pretty good. Even though it still had so many issues, it was passable. This second episode, oh my god, give me strength. It is so bad. It's even worse than Boba Fett. So much worse than Boba Fett, because at least they kind of stuck to the lore. I mean, either Disney is not listening, which is probably the more likely scenario, to Dave Filoni, or Dave Filoni is an idiot, and the Clone Wars and Rebels were flukes. Because they are literally contradicting lore that he wrote. He made the Clone Wars and Rebels. He made the Inquisitors. He made the Grand Inquisitor. And you are literally going against the established lore that he gave the character. What in the hell? What in the hell is even that? It's ridiculous. Anyways, the episode ends with Obi Wan Kenobi, who only just reattached himself to the Force, reaching out to a Bacta-tanked Anakin Skywalker, who opens his eyes. I don't even know what to say about this show. I don't even know what to say. It started off pretty decent. As I said, 8 or 9 out of 10. What would I give this one? I'm not even going to rank it out of 10. I'm just going to give it a fail, because it fails overall. It fails on so many things, and it succeeds in so little that it fails overall. Episode 2 of The Kenobi Show, an absolute failure, a colossal failure, and a massive F-up on the part of everyone involved. Not the actors, because they can only do so much. But it's ridiculous what they have done. It can't even be this hard to make a Kenobi show. Demand for like a Kenobi-centric piece of Star Wars media has been going on since like the prequels, since the Clone Wars TV show, and they still somehow managed to stuff it up. Anyways, I better go before I have an aneurysm from the immense rage I feel right now. So stay tuned for episode 2. Well, episode 2 of the review, but for episode 3 of the Kenobi show. Anyways, that's pretty much it for now. See ya.